Well, Trump is once again saying that a deal is imminent, that it can be reached within a couple of days, and everything is going fine, and the shooting is stopped. This is the way Trump is talking now. This is what we see in this news item that I have on the screen in front of you. Take a look at this. This is from the Jerusalem Post from today, and the headline reads: Trump says U.S. to finalize Iran deal within days, achieve total victory within 2 weeks. And it talks a little bit about how they're going to do this even if Israel doesn't like it. It serves American interests. Fair enough. And then it says, I don't think Israel will go back to fighting Iran. I don't think it's going to happen. Everything's going well. Speaking to reporters, Trump said that a deal with Iran could be completed within 2 or 3 days, adding that Iran and Israel have been trading blows with force, and now both have agreed through me to stop. We're in the final stages of what will be a very good deal that would not allow for nuclear weapons in any way, shape, or form. Okay, that's Trump, being Trump, being all optimistic. What I want to do in this video now is I want to go through a few excerpts of an interview that General Jack Keane gave on Fox News yesterday, and use that as a way of commenting on where I believe we currently are. Okay, so let's start in with the first clip of General Jack Keane. Here we go.
The promise, once again, of negotiations. We're close to our deal, close to a deal. The president has more information than you and I and everybody else put together. And we're hopeful that that is the case. But if it's not the case, clearly the preferred option after 8 weeks of frustration must be to return to military operations, 10 days, 14 days. Let's finish this. Let's put them in the most vulnerable position they have ever been in. And remind ourselves, what is President Trump trying to truly accomplish here? It is the strategic reset of the entire region for generations to come. This is about peace and stability in the region. So the Gulf states, so Israel, so all the countries in the region can have finally stability to go forward with economic deals, prosperity, Abraham Accords, and Iran is no longer the predator and actor that they have been for 47 years. And in their introduction riff, they're pointing out how they've been a killing machine, not only against their own people, but against the United States. That is what we are trying to stop here. And I give credit to the president. He hasn't given up on it. He's frustrated, to be sure, but you got to remind ourselves, who are we dealing with here? These are diabolical, tyrannical, ideological believers in this regime. They are running the place. They are evil, and that's the reality of it. At the end of the day, I truly believe what it's going to likely come down to is having to go after them and to kill as many of them as we possibly can, capture some if we can, but take all the instruments of tyranny away from them once and for all. It is likely the solution that has to come at some point.
Okay. I like General Jack Keane, and my attitude about what should happen here generally lines up with his, but I think he's being overly optimistic, maybe even a little Pollyannish here when he says we have to remind ourselves what President Trump is trying to accomplish here, is trying to reset the regional order so that all these countries can live in prosperity and pursue peace and Abraham Accords and la-di-da-di-da, everything's wonderful. And it's true to some extent. Let's first give credit where it's due. If you remove Iran completely, let's say the regime is completely, let's say we get what we really want. The regime is completely removed, and there's no longer a proxy network, there's no longer a funding apparatus, there's no longer a terror state, and that entire global apparatus atrophies because there's no more Iranian regime behind it. I guess it would still continue to operate as, various international terrorist groups, but it wouldn't be the same, nowhere near. Okay, let's say we remove Iran as a threat, as a regional threat. So he's saying here that all the neighboring countries will now suddenly be able to just breathe easy and live in peace, and there won't be a bully and a threat anymore. Now, to some extent, it's true, because the Saudis aren't going to launch any terrorist attacks or fund terrorist groups. The Kuwaitis won't. The Omanis won't. Most of the countries in the region just want to do business, and even if they don't like the West or don't like Israel, they do to different degrees. They're not going to cause the type of disruptions and killing that the Iranian regime does. On the other hand, it's not like the Turks and the Qataris and the Shiite militias in Iraq, who have basically taken over that country, are about to go away anytime soon from their nefarious activities. It's not like they're going to stop funding and supporting terrorist organizations. And also, there's the, he makes it seem like everyone in the region is looking forward to the Iranian regime being gone. Not so simple, as I've pointed out many times on this channel. If the Iranian regime falls and Iran becomes a free, open society with free markets and freedom of religion, and it's pro-Western, that is actually a threat to a lot of the neighboring countries. It's a threat to them because they are all Islamic countries where there is not freedom of religion. They're not democracies. Their populations are not as educated and not nearly as large as the Iranian population. Iran would emerge as a threat to them, a domestic threat to them. If there's this free, open society with a growing and freely operating Christian church, that poses a domestic threat to them. And there's also the distinct possibility that in the collapse of the regime, it would turn into a lot of bloody internal fighting. We don't know how it's going to go down. We don't know what type of chaos it's going to produce. We don't know if there's going to be a refugee crisis. There's a lot of unknowns here. And he's making it seem like, if we remove the regime, everything's fine. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to remove the regime. My interest is my country. I live in Israel, and I want Israel to be safe. And the best way to make Israel safe is to bring down this regime, for sure. But he makes it seem like it's in everyone's best interest to bring down the regime. And we have to remind ourselves that that's what we're doing here. Even if that is Trump's objective, he seems to have backed away from it. He doesn't talk about that regime change very much anymore. Is that tactical or is that real? I don't know. But it definitely, it's worth thinking about what Jack Keane is saying here. And when he says that it's going to come down to military action, we have to kill as many of them as possible, capture some if we can, but take all the instruments of tyranny away from them once and for all. Those are General Keane's exact words. I don't think that's what Trump is gunning for here. Now Jack Keane says he doesn't think there's going to be a deal. Got to remind ourselves who we're dealing with, as he says here. But we'll see. We'll see if President Trump actually has the same clear-eyed understanding of who he's dealing with. And I'm not so sure he does, personally. Let's go to the next clip of Jack Keane from the same interview.
We should remind ourselves he looks at war as a horrific thing, which it really is. Mm-hmm. And he speaks to the killing on both sides as something that we should stop. But the problem is, who are we really dealing with here? And this is a very different evil that we have to recognize. And we're giving it time. What Besant and his economic team is doing is extraordinary. But also, I remind ourselves who these people are. The amount of economic peril that we can impose on the regime and on the people. They don't care about the suffering. They will absorb that. Because their strategy here is to drag this out as much as possible as we can. They believe in their head that we get close to the midterm elections, it's unlikely the president would conduct any military operations whatsoever. That is what their belief system is. I think they're likely to miscalculate again. You know the president. I don't know him as well as you do, but I do have some sense of him for sure.
They sell him short just on political grounds. They're going to be completely wrong. He said as much. He said he don't care about the midterms. Now, he probably cares about the midterm, but they're not till November. We're still in June. Right. There's a long time period to take additional military action, additional economic action, if you may, additional decapitation action. There's many months left to do that.
We have evidence of this kind of miscalculation. Prior to the 12-day war, the president gave them a 60-day deadline. It kind of rings because we're about to go into one of those. And he tried to negotiate the deal with them then that he's attempting to do now. On the 61st day, he green-lighted Israel to begin the 12-day war, which he participated in himself around the 10th or 11th day. That is evidence of what the president means when he says, I am still going to use military force if you don't make a deal. I think that's the path that we're likely on. And as we've said before, he has information we don't have. If we can get this deal, and you and I have underscored the importance of this deal, no money.
That's right.
We cannot finance the
Absolutely
recovery.
Right.
We cannot finance the recovery. Now, here, I cannot agree more with Jack Keane that he's both at the beginning and at the end of this clip, he talked about the financial aspect, about what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and his economic team are doing. He talked about how extraordinary that is. But then he also pointed out in the middle there that the economic suffering that we can impose on the regime doesn't really impact them in the way that we hope, because they don't really care about the suffering of their own people. And this point about not financing the recovery, I want to show you a clip which I just dug up, which I've mentioned before. And this is at the NATO summit. This is President Trump speaking at the NATO summit way back in June, just after the 12-day war concluded. It's literally the day after it ended. This was published on June 25th. The 12-day war started on June 13th. It's right at the very end of the 12-day war. And check out this exchange that President Trump has with a reporter here. Oh, I should make this bigger again. Here we go.
Yesterday, you said China can now continue to purchase oil from Iran.
Yeah.
Are you giving up on your maximum pressure campaign? Because there
With
are
who?
sanctions right now
With who?
on Iran.
No, look, they just had a war. The war was fought. They fought it bravely. I'm not giving up. They're in the oil business. I mean, I could stop it if I wanted. I could sell China the oil myself. I don't want to do that. They're going to need money to put that country back into shape.
They're going to need money to put that country back into shape. So I'm going to allow them to sell their oil to China. That was what Trump said at the end of the 12-day war. And yeah, that's what he said there. So, Trump definitely understands the value of the economic blockade and the sanctions and everything he's doing to their economy and what Scott Bessent's team is doing, freezing assets. But we cannot fall into this trap again where Trump gives them some sort of economic relief under the guise of helping them rebuild their country, because we know what they did with it. After the 12-day war, what did they do with all of that economic relief that Trump gave them, allowing them to sell their oil to China? They used it all to ramp up missile production. They went from approximately 30 missiles per month that they were producing to close to 100 missiles per month that they were producing, and they were accelerating at that. They poured it all back into their military equipment. They did nothing for their people, so much so that their economy went to the verge of collapse and led to protests that almost brought down the regime. People didn't have water to drink, didn't have electricity, and yet they were pouring all the money they made into their military. They're going to do this again. And that's why it's so important what Jack Keane just said here. We cannot finance the recovery. We cannot do it. It's got to be a red line. So I hope Trump sticks to that. Last clip of Jack Keane here.
Well, even on the JCPOA deal, I mean, the secret sites that we bombed during the 12-day war, those 2 to 3 secret sites, where did we get those from? We got those from Iranian informants, that they were building secret sites that the IAEA was not inspecting, and to do what? To create a nuclear bomb. That if they sign a deal, I am absolutely convinced that what they will do is begin to recover. This is why the money is so important. You don't give them the money to recover, and they'll try to reverse everything that they agreed to in the deal. That is their history, and we have to look at that coldly in terms of who they really are.
I was also pleased yesterday to hear the president repeat his pledge to go after the enriched uranium, one way or another, as part of the deal or not. But he's not dropping that off his various, red lines. And I think I don't see him budging, sir. I don't see him budging. And if he doesn't budge and the situation doesn't change, then the military option comes about.
Yeah, it's the seminal part of the deal, because it is the existential threat, not just to the Israelis. I mean, we've got to remind our audience Why is the nuclear thing so important to us? Obviously, we fear they would use a weapon against Israel, but what would happen? The Arab states and the other countries in the region, once they know that they're going to have a nuclear weapon, what are they going to do? They're going to get nuclear weapons. That is the only defense they have. And I take caution from what Henry Kissinger said to me once, and more than once. Jack, the most serious geopolitical event in my lifetime is not World War II. It's Iran having a nuclear weapon leading to nuclear proliferation in the region, and likely the first nuclear exchange in the history of man. That is something we cannot ever permit to happen.
100%.
Wow. That was I think that this was such a powerful point. And it's really the main one that jumped out on me when I decided to go ahead and use this clip and make the video that we're watching right now. Sorry, I got this light here. Yeah, that's such a strong point. If Iran gets a nuclear weapon, then the Arab countries in the region, they just saw what Iran did with their missiles firing at them. They will seek a nuclear weapon. So Iran getting a nuclear weapon, this is the key takeaway here. It's the domino effect. Do we really want nuclear proliferation throughout the Middle East? This is what we're going to get if Iran gets a nuclear weapon. So when people say, well, what's the big deal if Iran gets a nuclear weapon? And I've made the point before that these aren't the Pakistanis or the North Koreans or the Russians having a nuclear weapon, who are not good people, but they're not apocalyptic. They will actually use the weapon if they have it. So, that's something that we have to bear in mind here. Someone's hammering next door, it sounds like. Anyway, this is such an important point that we have to remember whenever we're making the argument that also Iran getting a nuclear weapon doesn't just mean missiles with nuclear warheads on them that could provide some kind of defense umbrella for them. It also could mean all kinds of dirty bombs and tactical nuclear weapons that could be in the hands of their terrorist proxies around the world. The nuclear proliferation that could come from Iran getting a nuclear weapon, again, both from the response of their neighboring states and from the fact that they have a terror proxy network around the world. North Korea doesn't have a terror proxy network around the world. Pakistan doesn't have a terror proxy network around the world. Iran does. If they get a nuclear weapon, what does that mean? Hezbollah gets a nuclear weapon? The Houthis get a nuclear weapon? What does that mean? So these are all points we're thinking about. Okay, that'll be it for this one. Thanks for watching. Let's just pray that God gives the courage and wisdom to Trump to make the right moves at this critical time. Keep praying. God bless.